time is it?
Fuck. You know, I don't remember that part. All right, let's just not nitpick over the passwords.
Coming off his critically mixed and somewhat controversial film Licorice Pizza, director Paul Thomas Anderson, in my mind, entered a very interesting stage in his career. Let me preface by saying, I love his movies. I think Magnolia is an all-timer for all its faults, There Will Be Blood is just incredible, and I really think he's one of the last few great American directors of his time. And that's the thing. His films, for the most part, center around stories set before the 21st century, and while it did lead to some of the decade-defining movies of our times, by the time he got to Licorice Pizza, it felt that this is gonna sound really bad, but it felt kind of tiring. Almost like his attachment to these years and phases in time is a byproduct of the supposed mundanity of the 21st century, that he has very little interest in talking about the here and the now. His response to this bit of criticism that's been growing is one battle after another. Derived from the 1990 book Vineland, One Battle After Another stands as a proper modern entry to PTA's filmography, with iPhones and Mo Bamba the Bat. Centered around father-daughter Bob and Willa Ferguson, played by Leonardo DiCaprio and Chase Infinity, it follows them in a chase through the past of both him and Perfidia Beverly Hills, Willa's mother, set against the backdrop of modern California, with Bob a jaded ex-revolutionary who faces Colonel Stephen Lockjaw, played by Sean Penn. Now, PTA has toyed with these ideas of facing the music or letting go through films like Magnolia, Boogie Nights, and The Master, but I feel like One Battle After Another is the movie where it's in the very forefront of its story. This idea that characters may be through with the past, that they've gone older, they've progressed, and they've wisened up, but in actuality, the past is not through with them. And I think the reason why those themes feel so prudent in the film's DNA is it's probably what PTA himself is feeling. Anderson's fiery coked-up start and film is talked about a lot, like doing Boogie Nights at 27, and anything close to the scope of Magnolia at 29 is both ludicrous and outstanding. And of course, through the years, I wouldn't necessarily say his films would mellow out, but they'd mature, he'd find his voice as an artist, and further fine-tune himself, leading to incredible pieces of art in There Will Be Blood and Phantom Thread, which further leads us to this very film. A story centered around the oppressions and revolutions of yesterday, today, especially today, and tomorrow. How does that once fiery upstart tackle a movie centered around the restless, anxiety-filled post-9/11 America? Well, he faces the music head-on. Much like Mr. Bob Ferguson in the film, PTA tosses everything he is and everything he isn't into the very blood of the movie. Written and directed by him, and again, really his first film set in today's political landscape, it's a cinematic powerhouse of epic proportions. Not only because of the very relevant topic that takes place in both the background and foreground, but the energy of the movie is both, I guess, very PTA and very not PTA. It's very PTA in that the characters and performances have that signature melodramatic edge that's very much recognizable, but it's also very not PTA in that when I say the movie moves a lot, the movie just doesn't stop, and it can't stop. It's scratching and clawing itself to be anxious and to be on the move. PTA's movies are most known to be on the people talking in the room side, if that makes sense. That the characters are within their own control to move how they want with whatever intention they have. This film, on the other hand, once you leave the first act, it just boils. Not to the point where the water overflows, but it gets damn close. It's a similar feeling that I'd loosely compare to Fury Road, where it just goes and goes and goes. And it's crazy, it's non-stop, and it's just incredible while also balancing out its drama and comic sensibilities that PTA's movies, and especially his characters, are very much known for. And this leads to some great crowd-pleasing scenes, namely pretty much all of the moments that Leo shares with Benicio del Toro's sensei, which they have incredible on-screen chemistry, and I'd be ignorant not to bring up Perfidia, played by Tiana Taylor, as she and what she represents to the film loom over these characters and the story. She's absolutely written to be complex, at an arm's reach, and someone who stands in the gray area of who she really is in the moment, which may come off as incomplete or underdeveloped when you watch the film, but I kind of liked it in the end. She's the heartbeat that keeps Bob going, that keeps Willa going, that keeps Lockjaw going, and that keeps the fight going. Which leads me back to PTA and Bob. I can't help but see, and I've kind of already alluded to this, Paul Thomas Anderson and Bob. PTA, an artist who's very much grown out of the fiery filmmaking of his earlier work to a much more sustainable signature without all those phases a young filmmaker goes through. And Bob is very much cut from that same domesticated cloth. A person whose work is tied to a much more youthful and energetic past while burnt out and trying to reckon with today's advancements and yesterday's familiar problems. I think it's why the film is one of his least cerebral and most approachable in his filmography. It very much bleeds what it is, and it's very much black and white, which pretty much explains a number of its crowd-pleasing beats through the second and third acts. Supplementing these creative choices are all the technical achievements of the film. Shot on VistaVision, it not only gives the feeling of an old-school movie, which, yeah, duh, but it also speaks to the story of the film. Revolutions are a timeless concept. They span years and decades, so aiding the film in this area, why not shoot on a format that before recently hadn't been used since the 60s, making this very timeless story a timeless movie, almost like it could have been made back then, maybe even when the book this is abstracted from was released. Now, in terms of performances, I mean, at this point, what can I really say about Leo? He's one of the greats, and he just has it. Sean Penn is cartoonishly devilish in his presence, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got a nomination for this role. Chase Infinity and Tiana Taylor are great, albeit limited with the work they're given, but it's kind of the point. And Benicio del Toro is just so tough playing a street-level old head. Out of all the characters in the movie, I think he actually is the MVP. Johnny Greenwood's score is incredible. It always adds a sense of intensity when needed and further amplifies the anxiousness of the film. And while yes, that recognizable piano piece from the marketing is great, the grand and orchestral pieces are much more incredible, such as the piece that plays in the movie's opening scene. Some of my favorite non-spoilery moments and things in the movie are the Ready or Not needle drop, which really got me in a, like, let's go fight mood. Bob's incredibly funny phone calls, everything with Sensei, Sean Penn's Vince McMahon-esque intensity, and finally the long drawn-out chase scene before the epilogue that pretty much encapsulates this never-ending dogfight, which is both a technical feat and exhilarating to look at and experience. You need to see it on the biggest screen imaginable. So I guess I'll end with this. One of the reoccurring themes of the movie is this idea of time and running out of it. Hell, it was pretty much the opening scene in the first trailer. And in the film, the question does get answered. And without getting too much into spoilers, of course, it essentially amounts to being burdened by time. That we're all at the mercy of it. And in the moment that this is revealed is when the movie really takes off and explicitly shows what it is. The times change, the world on the outside changes, but internally, things never really get better. Bob and the French 75's way of expressing their beliefs may be jaded now, and they may be of a bygone era, but the reality is, it never really died with the times. It didn't die with Bob and Perfidia, and it never died with their crew of revolutionaries. Bob may have grown older and become much more conservative in his ways, it's just the way that life goes, but who he was and what his beliefs were never truly died in a blaze of fire. Where Bob and Perfidia's generation failed, the next will go on to pick up their torches. And this will go on and on and on.
Not one thing, it's another. Find that to be true.
Now, I don't think it's my favorite from him, nor do I think it's a clean-cut masterpiece of our lifetime. Like, while I appreciate the ending being hopeful and melancholic, it's just a tad bit too crowd-pleasing and clean for my personal taste. But besides that, PTA's delivered a classic that very much suits the modern day, which at this point, who's really surprised? I'm feeling a strong 4.5 stars on this. Let me know what you thought in the comments below, please like and subscribe, and thanks for watching.
Find yourself somebody who can do the job.